By now, you should already know on the back of your program is the access code for the Wi-Fi. If you sign in as a Berkeley guest and then you type in your username and the code that's in the back of this form, and also please share your comments on social media today, hashtag WEW2018 at Berkeley College. Berkeley College is the most important piece of this. And I feel like we've been doing this for a while. This is our 5th year of sponsoring Women's Entrepreneurship Week activities. We were one of the founding sponsors of this initiative. And today we have more than 160 colleges and universities around the country and also around the world participating in Women's Entrepreneurship Week activities. So I thank you. I thank our panelists for being here today, for sharing your voices. I thank our deans and our administrators here at the college. If you could please stand up. We have the Dean of our School of Business, Alana Zofel. Alana. Our Provost, Beth Castiglia. Our Vice President of Career Services, Amy Sorcelli. A lot of people have been asking about internship opportunities and job placement opportunities. Amy and her team are here in full force today, so please see Amy and her team. Career Services, could you stand? I know you're in the house. Thank you. Our Vice President of Student Development and Campus Life, Dallas Reed. And we have Cindy Marchese, our Senior Vice President of International. Our former president and senior vice president, executive director of the Berkeley College Foundation, Dario Cortez. Do I have everybody? Did I get everybody? And of course, our president, Michael Smith, you'll be hearing from him shortly. The title of today's event, Women in Leadership Breaking Barriers. I love this title because it means, what does it take to be the first but not the only one, the first but not the last? Like Mary Barra, the CEO, the first CEO of an American auto company, General Motors. Stacey Cunningham, the first woman president of the New York Stock Exchange. Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Or Brooklyn's own Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman elected to Congress. We can see firsts right here in this room. How many of you are the first in your family to go to college? We have a lot of hands here. First generation to go to college. Our keynote speaker, Deputy Secretary Elizabeth De Leon Bargava, is the first Latina to serve in the role of Deputy Secretary of Labor and Workforce in the state of New York. She's a first. And I bet our student speaker, Osleen Johnson, is probably one of the only people, not only in her high school in Hightstown, New Jersey, but in the country to author legislation that's being voted on in Congress today to bring civil rights cold cases back to life, bringing closure to families who've been suffering all these years because of hate crimes, because their family members and loved ones have been the members of hate crimes. Osleen, you are tremendous. Congratulations to you. Another reason today's theme resonates with me, and I hope it resonates with you too, is because we live in a time of action, a time when women's voices are being heard everywhere from Albany to our nation's capital. There are more women running for elected office today than ever in our history. Some 434 women throughout the nation running for office, including Stacey Abrams, the first African-American woman to run for governor in the state of Georgia. This isn't just a time of sharing our voices, it's a time of activating our voices. And no one knows this better than our president, Michael Smith, who encourages our students every day to elevate their voices, to tell their stories, to take charge of their lives, to set goals and achieve them. Michael is entering his 4th year as president of Berkeley College. It is an honor to work with him, to really help our students and to live the commitment of helping our students get to the graduation stage. Michael, I want to introduce you, and he's here to tell you more about Berkeley College. Thank you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. One of the best responses I get whenever I say good morning, people, you guys are fabulous. Good job. Welcome to Berkeley College. It's really such a pleasure to have you here today. To our guest panelists today, thank you. I look forward to this event every year. It's very insightful when we have our students here. It's real important for them to hear and model what you're saying. To our keynote speaker, Elizabeth Dilan Bhargava. Had first opportunity to meet her today. I like her. I mean, I do. I'm really looking forward to hearing what she has to say. But we're really appreciative of your time, one that you're giving on behalf of everyone in the state of New York and public service. Thank you. It's often a thankless task. It's not always fun and not quite as glamorous as it sounds. But we really do appreciate your service and speaking with us and speaking with our students in our group today here today. And of course to Angela, who is breathing, right, Angela? Breathe, breathe, breathe. But Angela's a really special person. For those of you who have met her and know her, she's extraordinarily talented and dedicated to the cause, and she puts her passion into everything that she winds up doing. So let me tell you a little bit about Berkeley College just for a moment. Berkeley College has been in existence for 87 years at this point. We have over 60,000 graduates in locations throughout New York, New Jersey, and also online. One of the key things to give you a cool sense about what Berkeley College is and what Berkeley College does is that within the last year or so, New York Times published a survey, a study that was done by an outside organization, and they measured what they called income mobility, which was moving household family incomes 2 or more quartiles based upon a student going to college at a particular institution. So they analyzed 2,100 colleges throughout the United States that offer bachelor's degrees. And Berkeley College turned out to be in the top 1% of all, Berkeley College in New York turned out to be 1% of all schools throughout the United States in measuring the movement of household family income. So Berkeley College is truly making a difference. To understand what that means is that the study encompassed 30 million students. Berkeley College ranked as number 1 as the 21st highest moving students from household family income. We're changing students' lives. And your model and what you're doing today is that you're going to illustrate to our students and to our guests here today the differences that you can make in someone's life through education, through behavior, through actions. Now, our panelists, typically each year have a very similar pattern. They may look different. They may have different jobs. They may have different titles. They may have been born in different places. But there's similarities that our panelists all have, and I expect you're going to hear the same kind of themes today. They've all faced challenges in their personal and professional lives. They've faced the aspects of change. Change is going to be a constant. But the one thing that's happened with all our panelists and all our speakers, you're going to hear the theme is that how they addressed those challenges, how they addressed the fear of change, and what they became. And the reality is what they did is they took those issues on head on. And they turned those challenges and they turned the opportunity, those elements into opportunities and became who they are today. Their paths were not easy. No one handed them anything. And for women entrepreneurs, there's a challenge that's out there now. And there's a tremendous opportunity to take those challenges. It's when you're riding the waves and you're on the surfboard and you're balancing. And there's a lot of things going on in your life. And then we all know we talk about having a balanced life. It's a fallacy. There's no such thing as having a balanced life. There are times where things are out of balance, but overall you need to bring things back to balance. But you're going to get knocked off the board, and students are going to get knocked off the board, and you're going to have bad days. But the reality is getting back up on the board and surfing and catching the next wave and moving forward. So on behalf of Berkeley College, I thank you. I have the very, very fortunate opportunities that when I had an opportunity to look at the agenda and look at the running order of when I was speaking. Angela was so good to me. So Angela, thanks for putting me in front of Oslin Johnson. Because if I had to speak after her, they'd be like, oh, who's that guy? She is truly, truly a special student. She is extraordinary. You meet some people in your life and you say, at a very young age, and you say, they're going to be something special. They're going to be someone. You don't know exactly what the story is going to be, but you know it's going to be a story. I'm so impressed by her. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be the president while she's been at Berkeley College, and I truly, truly am expecting really, really fabulous things from her. So, Oslin, why don't you come on up and say hello.
Morning. It's big words to come up to. Thank you very much. And thank you, Angela. I just want to say welcome everyone to Berkeley College. appreciate you all being here. I remember the first time I came to this event, which is a really incredible event, was last October. And I think I said it to Angela right away. That's where I met her for the first time. I said, this is an event that I never knew I needed to go to, and I had no idea how it would have affected my life. I went back to my campus. I'm at the Westchester campus for Berkeley, and I just felt this need, this drive to do, not just to think and to feel and to see issues or positive things that I wanted to perpetuate, but to do something about it. And so I'm part of our Student Government Association, and through that, that's the channel that I've used thus far to inspire events, programming, speaking with our administration about what we feel as though students need or what students want, and how to encourage and empower our students, because feeling encouraged and empowered, as I felt the last time I was at this event, was a feeling that I wanted other people to feel, especially other women at our campus. That's a feeling that I can't thank the panelists from last year enough for. There are some returning members, and to the panelists this year and our keynote speaker, thank you for being here, thank you for wanting to be here, and thank you for wanting to give the other guests here, the other women here, the same feeling that I was given last year, because it really does inspire change, and it has made me and continues to make me want to be even a fraction of how inspiring you are and as successful in whatever field I decided to pursue. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Today, we're going to have a lunch and learn for anybody in business or any of our students who want to learn how to start a company. You want to learn about branding or taking your company to the next level with our Dean of the Larry L. Lewing School of Business, Alana Zolfel, and our Vice President of Career Services, Amy Sorcelli. And then on another side of the room, we're going to have student discussions about today's event, deconstructing the conversations and talking about women in leadership and some of the principles of leadership and how we can apply them to our own lives. Elizabeth De Leon Bargava is the Deputy Secretary for Labor and Workforce for the Office of the State of New York, Governor Cuomo. She was appointed in March of 2015 and is the first Latina, as I mentioned earlier, in this position. And I want to start with her resume of where it all started in Washington Heights, where she was raised. And I know our students will want to know that Ms. De Leon Bargava graduated from the University of Buffalo School of Law. And while in law school, she served as a legislative intern to Senator Hillary Clinton, a judicial intern for the Honorable Sonia Sotomayor for the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, and a law clerk in the United States Attorney's Office, Southern District. We have a few attorneys in the house, Osleen. So you two need to meet, okay. In her current role as Deputy Secretary of Labor and Workforce, Ms. De Leon Bargava oversees 7 state agencies and appeal boards. She is the hardest working woman in the state of New York. If you knew what her schedule was like, we are so honored that you are here with us today. She runs the Department of Labor, Department of Civil Service, Workers' Compensation Board, the Governor's Office of Employee Relations, Public Employment Relations Board, the Industrial Board of Appeals, and the Unemployment Insurance Appeal Board. She was integral in securing New York's recent increase in the minimum hourly wage to $15 an hour and establishing the nation's most robust paid family leave program. She has accomplished so much in her life. Her bio is in your book, but you could actually read a novel online, I'm sure, if you search her out. I want to introduce you, Deputy Secretary. Thank you for being here, and we can't wait to hear what you have to say about women in leadership. Thank you.
So now I want to hire Osleen, and I'm like, what? this is where you find talent, places like these. Good morning. Good morning. So thank you, Angela, for that wonderful introduction. And Asleen, it takes a lot to be a student and to actually, sort of open up a panel with so many amazing people. So, and she used like no paper, which I wrote that down. So thank you, President Smith. I also want to mention the chairman of the board, Kevin Lewing. Thank you for inviting me. It's extremely important to bring women together. And so I just wanted to recognize the importance of Berkeley taking the time to organize that. It's not easy to organize events. I'm looking at the flowers, the details that, of course, women will pay attention to. And some men, I'll say that. But so thank you so much. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize two women. Can you guys hear me? Are you good? Okay. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize two friends that I have in the audience, and that's Laura Rothrock, the reason why I'm here. Where is she? Raise your hand. And Elizabeth Velez, who is a partner in crime. Where is she? Elizabeth! Another Elizabeth. She hasn't seen me in the longest time, and today she sees me and she gets right to work. She's like, what are we doing at Somos? What's going on? So it's like, I love my friends. But good morning and buenos dias. Ladies, it is an honor to stand here before you today in a room full of women who themselves are an inspiration, and you're all successful in your own right. Women have been fighting for equal justice for generations. As you can see from what we have witnessed during the last several weeks, months, and year, I would say, our work is far from over. In fact, we're experiencing losses on hard-fought battles that we believed we had won. In the time since I accepted the invitation to speak here today, we have witnessed so much, and every day seems to bring a new anxiety. It has been difficult, very difficult, for me to bear witness to it all. In a single day, I can experience feelings of elation, rage, anger, and feelings of helplessness. And I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted, as you can tell. But this is a fight that we need to continue fighting. And to fight it, we have to be, we have to remain, and we have to demand a seat at the table. But more importantly, it is what you do while sitting at that table that matters most. We must support each other and ensure that we band together to amplify our voices. For that is the key. Because 2, 3, 4 voices are certainly stronger than one. It is a strategy that the women of the Obama administration exercised to ensure that their contributions were recognized and that the credit be given to its rightful owner. Coming together and supporting each other's voices is the only way we will achieve the equality we deserve for women, for the marginalized, for everyone. This fight I know all too well. I live it every day. It is what I do, and it is what drives me. I have spent my entire career drafting, advocating for, creating, litigating, and launching hundreds of initiatives aimed at protecting, improving, and advancing the lives of all New Yorkers. I'm a proud Latina who has had the privilege of serving this state and this great city my entire professional career. Actually, President Smith asked me, how long have you been with the state? And I said, my entire professional career. Over almost 3 decades, I have served 3 attorney generals, a New York City mayor, a Manhattan district attorney, a New York state senator, a city council speaker, a Supreme Court justice, and now the governor of the state of New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo. In my capacity as the New York State Deputy Secretary for Labor and Workforce, I oversee actually a portfolio of 9, so they gave me more work now. State agencies, I got more boards, and several statewide initiatives that collectively create opportunities and the necessary infrastructure to help New Yorkers not only survive, but thrive. Which is why I am proud to say that New York has been and continues to be a national leader in empowering and protecting women. In 2015, This administration enacted several pieces of legislation to protect and further women's equality. These new laws are helping achieve pay equity, strengthening anti-human trafficking laws, protect and empowering domestic violence victims, and pregnancy discrimination in the workplace. And through these agencies, boards, and initiatives, as Angela mentioned, we have helped maintain a safer and fairer working environment. And I have had a seat at the table throughout all of these life-changing initiatives. But for every barrier I have broken, for every table which I have had a seat at, I have had women by my side and leading the way. If last week is not a testament, I am proof that without the women in my life, the women who have worked and fought for me, for all of us, I would not have achieved all that I have achieved. My story is not the one that you always read about or that the media celebrates, because it's not a glamorous one. However, it does involve key women throughout my life, a community, a village that helped me break out of these bonds of perceived limitations to become the woman that stands before you today. Mine is the story of a woman who charted a path that wasn't direct, made a few stops, and took a few turns. A journey that has allowed me to rise to become one of the highest ranking Latinas in the state of New York, and also the first Latina in its history to hold the post of Deputy Secretary. Not the post of just Deputy Secretary for Labor and Workforce, the post of Deputy Secretary. So my story, this is the juicy part. I was born at Morrisania Hospital in the South Bronx to immigrant parents from the Dominican Republic. Both my parents, I know, I recognize a Dominican in the house in 2 seconds. I walked in and I saw her and I said, she's gonna be like, who is this woman? But both Ciudadeños from Salcedo. And around, and around the time that I was 5, the building where we lived exploded. And in an instant, we were homeless. We moved in with family to Washington Heights until my mother and father found a 5th floor walk-up apartment on 180th Street and St. Nicholas. My parents worked 12 to 14 hours a day. They were laborers, they were hard workers. My mother's first career was as a child care provider, then a cook, then a cashier, then a manager at a supermarket, and lastly, as a home health care attendant. My father was a taxi driver, a door-to-door salesman, and a travel agent. By the time I was 8, I was a common statistic, living under the poverty line in a household being led by a single mother and a father in jail. My father did time both at Rikers Island and at a New York State facility in upstate New York. Growing up in Washington Heights was not like it is today. The Washington Heights of my childhood was dubbed the crack cocaine capital of the world in a New York Times article. In my college essay, I described how drugs had infiltrated every block and violence was the norm. The bars of success for a woman when I was a teenager growing up in the Heights were, in no particular order, don't get pregnant at 15, graduate high school, and women should not push too hard. And the key to success, according to many, for a woman was to become a receptionist. It would have been easy for me to succumb to my surroundings, to accept all the bad habits and limitations expected of me. But I didn't, because I had women by my side, starting with my mother. She was the first role model, and she was a fierce one at that. I witnessed my mother wake up every morning at 5:30 a.m. to get us ready for school, review the daily itinerary, and make sure she left a list of chores and responsibilities for us, things we needed to complete before she got home. And that always happened. We always completed them. I also witnessed her struggles and challenges at work, with making ends meet, with being an immigrant and a woman of color in this country. However, she was and is a force to be reckoned with. Her determination in making sure that we did not stray and her love for us was unwavering. My mother believed in me. before I could believe it myself. And sometimes that's all it takes, that someone believe in you. During my senior year in high school, and against all odds, I trusted myself. And for the first time in my life, I disobeyed my mother. You have no idea how hard that was to do. I decided to apply to college outside of the city of New York, to go out of New York City. And off I went. And if you ask my mother, this is exactly when all her health problems started. It's the Latina guilt that, it's. After my mother, there is a long list of women. A ripple effect. The women in my life who continue to support me every day through their mentorship and sponsorship. This support has enabled me to earn my seat at the table in government and politics and to be an active participant. All of us play a critical role in ensuring each other's success. I have made it my mission to pay it forward as often as I can. But in closing, together we can influence. Together we can advocate and fight for the vision for ourselves, our families, and our communities. Invest in yourself. Invest in other women. Become purposeful. Don't be afraid to support those who may surpass you. Rely on the women by your side. Be the woman at another woman's side. We owe it to ourselves to continue to fight the good fight. Thank you.
Deputy Secretary, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself and for paying it forward at Berkeley College. We stand together, and that's what this day is about, to help women, to support each other, and your life experience will leave an indelible mark on all of us and will continue to inspire us, and we thank you. I know our president has a presentation he wants to make to you, and then what we'd like to do is, some of you were here last year and we took an amazing photograph. Do you remember that photo? We're going to do it again. So we're going to take a picture with the Deputy Secretary, but first our President Michael Smith wants to do another presentation.
Each year at Berkeley College, we create a theme for our associates to really key on and focus, and it really centers around our students, but the themes are usually universal. And the theme, on one side, we talk about the goal of One Berkeley, but the theme that we have for this year that we really encourage all our associates to understand is it's know your goal, and it's a picture of a graduate on the top of a mountain. And I'd like to present this on behalf of Berkeley College to the Deputy Secretary for speaking today. And hopefully it's below the acceptable gift level, so you're fine with that. So that there's no ethic issues that you're going to have with that. But hopefully you'll proudly display this in your office and think about the time that you came and shared your story and how you impacted so many people going forward. So thank you very much.
So throughout this morning, everybody's been telling me to breathe, but I think everybody on this side of the house needs to breathe. Take a nice breath. And we're going to get going with our program. We're going to move to our first panel, and our moderator, Angie Tang, who is a tremendous ambassador for Berkeley College. She's a trustee of Berkeley College and an impact investing advisor, and she's been very supportive of this event. You may recognize Angie from last year's Women's Entrepreneurship Week panel. Angie has such an amazing resume as a global business leader. She was executive director of the Committee of 100, a Chinese American leadership organization for the advancement of U.S.-China relations and Asian American community progress. In 2001, President George Bush appointed Ms. Tang to serve as a spokesperson and a regional executive of the U.S. Department of Labor. Ms. Tang was formerly a cabinet official in the administration of Mayor Rudy Giuliani and a policy advisor to New York City Council President Andrew Stein. She was elected term member of the Council on Foreign Relations and served on the board of directors of several not-for-profit organizations. She is a recipient of several awards, including the 2013 Above and Beyond Chairperson Award for New York City City and State Public Policy Magazine. She is a graduate of Phillips Exeter Academy, Princeton University, and Columbia Business School. She is fluent in Cantonese, Mandarin, and Spanish. You are a tremendous story yourself, an inspiration, Angie. and when you meet the panelists on this upcoming panel on women in leadership in business and global business, you are going to continue to be even more inspired to make an impact, not just in your local community, but in the world. Take it away, Angie.
Well, wait until you hear the bios. And in fact, I would encourage you, if you have a chance to really peruse at your, in your free time, get a chance to see the context of amazing professional background of these panels we have today so that we can have a richer discussion. And as Angela highlighted, as a trustee, I'm a really a cheerleader, basically, of Berkeley College. And like our leaders, like President Smith, Angela, a very talented team of associates, and our faculty here, many of us are committed, all of us are devoted to one single mission, and that is to empower our students, like Osleen and many others, empower them to achieve lifelong success in dynamic careers. And today, these panelists that are joining us are prime examples, role models for our students. They have achieved success in their various dynamic careers. Do we have our panelists here? Would you please join us? In the interest of time, because we are running about half an hour behind, we would try to truncate some of the introductions. Dr. Doro, unable to make it. So we have now 3 panelists. Dr. Ndoro is unable to join us. We have Ms. Ploger, Ms. Robles-Guest, so Ms. Valles, who was already introduced by our keynote speaker. So let's take it away. We have this mission, and which is to showcase and to inspire our students with stories of success. And today, you have pledged your life away. You are here to do a tell-all of every difficult experience and every success story you've had. So in this 2-minute introduction, this round, I would like to kick it off with, give us some highlights of your career journey. One that would highlight a prominent character trait of you that takes you to your success today. We'll start with Ms. Ploger.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I think it's a character trait. I don't know, is this on?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a character trait that I believe that all entrepreneurs have and all successful men and women, and that is two things. I call them the two P's, passion and perseverance. And my past is really runs the gamut from working for a big major international retail association to running my own business to helping to build the New York sports clubs. Anybody know the New York sports clubs? Four clubs to what they are today, 150 clubs plus. I was with them for 12 years. Then I ventured into the nonprofit world, and I was the president of Manhattan Chamber of Commerce for 21 years, where I really had the opportunity to develop lots of programs to help women, to help tech, STEM, you name it. We put together committees. We really drove initiatives to help startups and small businesses to succeed. And there were challenges and plenty of challenges. But I think the main thing is that every time a door closed, I just went and knocked on another door. And I think if you read bios of most of these women or any successful women or men for that matter, it's really passion about what you're doing and continued perseverance. So that's how I was able to overcome some of the challenges. And in all these jobs that I had, I recognized right off that I was a builder, that I really enjoyed building things. And that's why I believe I was successful, because I really believed in what I was building, and I put my heart and soul into it, and had passion and had perseverance. That's kind of a general overview.
Excellent. We'll go on to Ms. Robles.
Well, my name is Nancy. I am a Berkeley alum, so I'm very honored to be here with all these amazing women. Well, my story, my career, currently I'm an executive vice president of a finance company, bank-owned company in Midtown Manhattan. And I've been in finance for 18 years. And I'm a compliance officer, so I am involved in a lot of aspects of running the organization. But I don't believe that that's my success. I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, single-parent home. By the time I was 25, I was a single mom with 3 kids. And with being that I grew up in Paterson, I didn't have the best primary education. Immigrant, I came here when I was 8 from Costa Rica. So I was missing a lot of the foundation that other successful people have. The poverty, I lived below the poverty level. So when I went to Berkeley, really, I went to Berkeley at 25 after a 5-year abusive relationship. And so I was really lost. And it was really, for me, a matter of survival and feeding my kids who were under the age of 5, all 3 of them. So I would say that resilience is really what describes me the best. I've overcome a lot of hardships right off the bat. I mean, just being an immigrant itself, those of you who know that experience, is really an experience of desperation. People don't come here because they want to, because they're comfortable, they don't leave the comfort of what they know unless they really have no other choice. So the entire experience, I think, is really about resilience and survival. When I got into the finance industry, actually Berkeley got me my first job in finance. It was because I needed to feed my kids, and finance seemed like a industry that would had a lot of promise. Of course, I didn't know that being a Latina woman would have such an impact on my career. Up to that point, in my mid-20s, I was really blinded to the fact that my career choices and challenges, a lot of them would stem from just the fact that I'm a woman of color. But I have learned through the years how to overcome a lot of challenges. Currently, I am always the only woman in the room, the only minority in the room. And so it's an ongoing challenge, but I've been able to accomplish a lot in my organization. I'm in charge of technology. We've made some amazing developed some amazing innovation that has helped us be successful. And I have had a lot of support. Like they say, it does take a village, and a lot of support from family, friends. My own children have had to make a lot of sacrifices. I have 5 now, so we have the 3 older ones that had to give up a lot of things when I was earlier in my career. Now I have 2 little ones that have reaped the benefits. But yeah, it's been, you know, it's been a road with a lot of challenges, a lot of bumps. Unfortunately, I didn't have mentorship along the way, which is one of the reasons why now I am so committed to paying that forward, to coming back to Berkeley, to speaking to students, to speaking to women I work with, women at conferences or any other opportunity I get to speak to women or any group that's marginalized, to let them know, hey, if I can do it, so can you. So that is, I would say, those are my characteristics.
Excellent resilience. Ms. Velez?
Good morning, everybody. So I love how Nancy said you're a builder. I really am a builder. I run a construction company, almost 50-year-old construction company. So a builder of a different kind, Nancy. I like Nancy's kind of building especially. So to evaluate, I think, who I am today, I have to kind of go back a little bit. I was born in Brooklyn, one of 7 daughters of Andrew and Lois Velez, and moved out to Long Island. And that's where my formative years were spent. So I was really in kind of a protective bubble, I think, until I graduated undergrad. And I had always worked for our family business in construction, and decided to stay on through a bunch of events that happened and people that intersected in my life. I realized I really loved building. I really loved changing skylines. I really loved that my industry was quite tangible. I could touch what I did. But my father always said to me, there's no place in construction for women. There's no place in business for women. And when he said that at the time, I didn't feel outrage. I didn't even feel sadness. I think I felt an understanding that he was trying to protect me somehow as I moved forward. So I'm in this tremendously male-dominated industry of construction, and I too, Nancy, am often the only woman in the room, and certainly a lot of times the only woman of color, being a Latina. And I realized that people would act like they were strikes against me, you know, starting with my father, and people that I would interface with. Oh, she's a woman, she's a Latina. But I knew in my heart that those 2 strikes were my greatest assets. Being able to be a woman, to be that strong person, to be that communicator, to be understanding. I knew what I could bring. And being a Latina, relying on my cultural background, my strong family base, wanting to work together, being very loving. Loving salsa, you know, loving music and food. I realized that those strikes were actually my greatest assets. So how did I move on in this crazy male-dominated industry? And it still is. It really, I hate being an anomaly. I want to be one of the many. I actually became a sponge. I realized that for me to serve my company and my family, and to serve my industry, I had to be a sponge. I had to gather all the information I could about my industry. So I looked at trends. I became like a little bit of a data junkie. I looked at the issues facing the construction industry. How can we make good change? How can I advocate for change? And I became an advocate, and I still am, within my industry for good policy. I found my voice, and I didn't always agree. My voice didn't always agree, but I found my voice, and eventually earned my place, if you will, within my industry. So I'm often asked to go up to Albany to advocate on behalf of capital programs, go to City Hall and the City Council, go down to Washington, D.C. But in finding my voice, I had to also find in my heart what I had to do as an advocate. Feeling a little bit lonely being the only woman in the world, in the industry, sorry, not the world, obviously. So I realized that I wanted to be the change, right? Be the change you wish to see. And my controller recently said to me, and I said this earlier today, that in my office, and we do about 20 to 30 million dollars a year in construction. He came to me and he said, "You know, Elizabeth, we have a majority female workforce." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that," and I really didn't. It wasn't a goal of mine necessarily. It was just me, I think, recognizing talent transcends gender. In addition, I serve as an advocate of voice on many advisory boards for the city and the state. I'm on my newest challenge is operating out of my comfort zone, which I recommend everyone do on a regular basis. I'm a commissioner on the Real Property Tax Reform Commission. You know, talk about a heady subject, which we could talk about at another time. I know why I'm there. I'm there to have a voice for the people that don't typically have a voice in the room. One of my greatest accomplishments in terms of advocacy, so that would maybe be my voice, is we are now, our construction company now is building builders. We took over a mentor program for the New York City School Construction Authority, and I have 135 young entrepreneurs, men, minority men and women that I'm trying to shepherd into that next kind of generation to build capacity and to have those kind of opportunities that we kind of had to break those barriers to be in. And I love the theme of breaking barriers, but sometimes breaking is noisy. You have to be a little stealthy at times. So I'm thrilled to be where I am today and to be able to look back and pull people along with me.
Okay. So we have passion, perseverance, resilience, and
Advocacy.
advocacy as a primary prominent traits of global leadership. And as I was listening to our panelists, very illustrious journeys, I looked back and reflected on my own career, and I noticed that these transitions between public, private, and the nonprofit sectors really afforded me that perspective of seeing the differentials in the different sectors. For example, the resource allocation within very structured companies are very different from a woman entrepreneur, much smaller companies. Women that work in corporate America enjoy benefits like health, retirement income, a structure and systematize advancement opportunities, mentorship, sponsorship that are structured and again systematized. So many of you mentioned that importance and highlighted those needs. So as entrepreneurs, you really are a very special breed of leaders. You bring skill sets that enable you to become the global leaders that you are today. And so if I want to put some color in it, in the world of badasses, you are the baddest, right? You are. So I said it. It's on social media. It's getting out. So take us to how do you level the playing field? How do you leverage your resourceful mindset to navigate, to bring forth change when you don't have all of those resources?
Well,
Nancy?
having been with the Chamber of Commerce, I had the ability to see the opportunities out there that organizations, associations, women's groups, industry associations. Elizabeth and I worked on the mayor's MWBE council for a while. And so I was lucky enough to be able to see that, to see out there, to see all the sea of opportunities, and a lot of people just don't know about them. So I think in order to help me navigate and to help to build the chamber at the time, and now building the International Women's Entrepreneurial Challenge Foundation, which is a very long title, we just call it the IWIC Foundation, in supporting women-owned businesses around the world, We do this through chambers of commerce. We do this through women's business groups. So you have to find the outside resources that can support and fill the gaps that you don't have within your own company or within your own industry. And I think, to me, that's really a key, is that you have to do research. You have to get out there. Somebody else is doing it. Somebody else is offering the support. You just have to find them. So it's really a matter of you as a leader going out there and finding out how you can fill the gaps, your needs in your company by tapping into these other organizations who in terms can lead you to other people who can support you and fill those gaps. So it's really taking advantage of the outside world and the resources that are out there to help to support what you're trying to do. So in my case with the IWEC Foundation, it's working through chambers of commerce in Barcelona and Lima and Sweden and South Africa and Zimbabwe and all these different chambers around the world, which are totally focused on helping to build entrepreneurship, to build the future corporations of tomorrow. So that's how we really build our network and help to fill the gaps where I don't have the resources to go out and tap into all the women business owners from Zimbabwe. But the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce sure does. So it's finding the resources that you need from the outside.
Oh, Nancy, it occurs to me that there's also another added interest. How would you also recommend the same type of approach with women entrepreneurs who are looking to raise capital, to fund and to ramp up or grow their businesses?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's something that we focus on with our women's committee, and I'm sure both of you, and especially in finance, and my colleague Sunita Bajaj, who runs a financial consulting firm. It's really, again, just getting out there and finding out the different sources. There are a lot of angel investors out there today. There are certainly venture capitalists, which you may not be willing to really go out and sell off some of your stock. But you have to look out there, I mean, even for small things, the crowdfunding, it's really doing your homework. It's really doing the research. Yes, the traditional ways of going to banks, sorry, may not work for you. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of whatever. But there are, especially in today's world, a lot of all sources of alternative funding. And of course, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs start with their own credit cards, their own families, their own friends, the crowdsourcing, and then you go on from there. So it's really, again, just doing the research and finding through women's business groups, through chambers. This is how you can find all these gaps. You just don't have to go on Google and see what's out there and you don't even know whether they're legit or you trust them. It's finding the resources that can lead you to those specific funders.
If I can just piggyback on that a little bit, Nancy, and I'd like to think that the genesis of this idea came out of some of our meetings way back when with the Small Business Services of New York City. There are some terrific programs out there. So if anyone in the room has this kind of entrepreneurial spirit bubbling up or is an entrepreneur, the city has a group called We NYC, Women's Entrepreneurs NYC. And they actually focus on not only building your kind of business capacity, but they focus especially on the funding sources and the alternative funding sources, because women don't traditionally have access to the pots of money that, I'll just say it, you know, that men sometimes do. We're looked at a little bit differently. Our credit, where we are, our earnings, is it family earnings? That kind of thing. And so there are terrific programs out there, and just to underscore what Nancy said, if you go out there and you network all the time, by the way, if you network with chambers of commerce and other women's organizations, they'll tip you off to what's the latest and greatest best thing. The state also has some great programs too, because there is a public mandate for integration and diversity in terms of business development.
Do we want to add anything on our financial?
I think it's pretty
traditional
much
banking?
covered. I mean,
Okay.
traditional banking is, you know, after the 2008 crisis, only 33% of women who applied for financing were able to get loans, while 50% of their male counterparts were approved for those loans.
Yeah.
So I would say that in traditional banking, there's definitely a gap And again, like, it's been covered. There's grants, SBA loans, which are paper heavy, but they are available, and other types of financing that are specifically focused on helping women develop and empower themselves.
Right.
And can I just add one
Yes.
other thing? Just so, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this, but the government agencies and also major private corporations are all about trying to bring in more MWBEs and give more contracts. And they will oftentimes work with companies to help them build the capacity to do that. There are a couple of state agencies in particular that do that very well. But also on a global international space, which is where I'm working right now, it's all about capacity building, and it's about finding strategic partners. You don't have to go it alone. You can find someone who's either got a complementary business, and this is an example. We have a woman who owns a business in Florida. She was looking, she has businesses all over the world. She does tech recruiting, sorry. So she wanted to get into South Africa, and South Africa has all these rules about foreign companies coming in and setting up business there because they want their own people, and rightly so, to have those capabilities. So she went at one of our events, and she went and she met a young woman there who had a tech recruitment company who was just kind of starting. Meanwhile, this person was way up here in the clouds doing $2 billion, and she was able to enter the country by working with this young woman who had her own tech company, and she's building that company up. So it's about strategic partnerships. So you don't always have to just think about finding finance for my own company. Maybe somebody else is out there, and together you could do it bigger and better. So just
Great. And these are all really excellent advice. I hope you're all taking notes. While capital is really critical, it's certainly not the only building blocks to as many builders we have here, not the only ingredients that goes into building a successful enterprise for entrepreneurs. And I want to move into the area of skill sets that are required. I'm a former federal government official. In fact, I was the regional executive for the U.S. Department of Labor for this region. And as a labor official, I was mesmerized with one statistic about the U.S. workforce. And that is how dynamic American workers are. We have about 1/3 of the U.S. workforce, that's 100 million workers, change jobs every year. And I repeat, 1/3 of our workforce, 100 million workers, change jobs every year. And as of 2010, the typical average American worker will have had 14 jobs from the ages of 18 to 46 alone. 14 jobs. So in this ever dynamic and evolving career outlook and an economy that's ever increasingly global and knowledge-based, what kind of skills do we need as someone who's entering the workforce, who's looking to, say, maybe start on a career in a multinational corporation or start their own business that is global-minded? Thoughts?
Well, go ahead. I'm not in the global space. My focus is primarily on leadership. So I think in this question, you're probably better equipped to
Well,
answer.
again, I think that it kind of goes back to the type of person you are. Certainly, if you're talking about technology and STEM and engineering and all of those careers that are coming down the pike, you don't even know what you need right now because it's changing tomorrow. So the main thing is just really, as Elizabeth did, she said, when she decided to get into this, she did research. She became a sponge. She became a data junkie. You got to get out there. You got to find out what's going on in the industry. What are the hot jobs right now? If I ask you, do you know what industries today the job there's a huge job market for? What are we going to say? Probably STEM, right? But what about health? Do you know that Ford? There's a Ford plant in New Jersey, or maybe it's BMW. I don't know. There's a big auto plant. They're dying for workers. They're coming into the city. They're going to the tech schools. And it's not about, wearing overalls and getting underneath the hood of a car anymore.
Right.
No, 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 no. It's all computerized. And so what they've done, these plants, if they come to the city and the parents are like, the first generation, they're like, my kids are not going to work in an automobile factory. No, 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 no. But they bring them and the kids on buses to come to these factories, and by the time they're finished, the parents in the bus are telling their kid, you're going to work in that place. The benefits, the technology, the knowledge that you have to have. So we don't know all of the skill sets that you need for these particular types of industries, but you can learn it. And either you learn it in school, then you get yourself set up to go into that industry, or you're just really, really aggressive and believe in the industry, and you go and you learn it on the job. So it's really hard to, I go back to the skill sets of being a leader, is being a passionate and perseverance. I mean, if you look at Lady Gaga, okay, forget movie stars, but she would not take no for an answer. She just kept going and singing in bars. I'm not talking about A Star Is Born. I'm talking about who she just did not take no for an answer. Creative, off the wall, very different, but just kept pursuing it. And that's really what, if you don't know what skill set you need for your industry, soak it up, get out there, do the research and find it out. But whatever you're going to do, you bring passion and you bring perseverance and you bring 200% to that job, and you will be successful and go on to be a leader, in my opinion.
And just another to piggyback on what Nancy's saying, women in general, since we're having this women's discussion, are traditionally a little more risk averse. It's how we protect ourselves, and sometimes I think we tend to set the bar real low so that we can hit our home runs easily, right? But you have to kind of, and I said this before, operate a little bit out of your comfort zone, right? So if you're feeling uncomfortable, if your stomach is bothering you, that's a good thing. That's a learning moment. Like don't try and squash it. Embrace it. In fact, and so it's something that I struggle with all the time. So I continue to be that sponge. I clearly don't know everything about anything, right? So it's something I'm constantly trying to improve myself, improve my industry, improve New York, really, as a much more lofty goal. But I still struggle with the risk taking. After the Hurricane Maria, and I'm from Puerto Rico, I wanted to help out in Puerto Rico. So I'm struggling with, I have an office down there. I opened up an office. I want to help rebuild homes and lives. So I have a workforce initiative that I started down there to start training. Like Nancy was saying, sometimes the training and the jobs may not be after having, and this is contrary to Berkeley College, and I'm a trustee of Boricua College, but sometimes it's not necessarily getting a college education. Sometimes it's going straight into those careers, and I'm an advocate for education, 100%. Where you could go to really build a career and build a family. So down in Puerto Rico, we're building workforce initiatives. So I'm moving very slowly there. I'm very risk averse going into another area, but I'm trying to be more collaborative with local businesses down there that have kind of paved the way a little bit, and then I can hopefully bolt on to them and offer some strength. But I'm concerned about it. If anyone has any ideas about risk aversion, throw them this way, because this is a two-way conversation.
Well, that's excellent.
Well, I did want to add, as you mentioned, education. We don't always have to follow a traditional path of education. When I got my bachelor's, I started my bachelor's degree when I was already in finance. I went back, my initial degree at Berkeley was a paralegal degree in 2000. Then I went back while in finance because I recognized that I would never make it into management unless I got a bachelor's degree. I graduated in 2004 with my bachelor's degree. While at my current position, well, not in the position I'm in, but in my current company, I went back to school for my MBA. I did it online. It took me 6 years. 2 more kids later, and like 4 promotions later, I graduated my MBA. Currently, I'm working on a doctorate degree in leadership. That's for you.
All right.
You are badass.
Yes.
Clearly, I didn't follow a traditional path. But, one of the a piece of advice I always give to young women starting their career is invest as much in your self-development and education, and this is a little controversial, as you do is in your appearance. Because we spend a lot of time trying to conform to society's pressures of the way we look, and it's, you know, it's you can't run away from it, right? It's everywhere we look. But society doesn't always pressure us to educate ourselves and develop ourselves in the same manner that we have to conform to the way we're supposed to look. So I always tell people, particularly young women, you have to educate yourself. Put the same effort that you do every day in the way you look in developing your mind, because that's the only real asset that you have. So to that, you know, tradition, yes, start working. You know, some of us have to start as soon as possible. We don't have the privilege of going to college and living in a dorm and having those types of experiences. But you can still continue to go to school at night, go to school online, whatever it is, just continue to develop yourself so that you can be ready for those opportunities to take the risk. Because I've taken a lot of risks in my career, but I try to prepare myself as much as possible to take those risks. So do everything you can, do your homework, do the research, prepare yourself, educate yourself, develop your mind so that when you take those opportunities or the opportunities come your way, you're ready to take the plunge.
These are excellent advice that we've heard for all of us. And we've covered so far character traits. We've covered the financial know-how and the skill set that are required for leadership. And Elizabeth touched on a very important gorilla in the room. We talked about gender norms, right? Differences, whether it's risk aversion or perceptions of how women are different. And I'd like to highlight a study that was conducted in 2003 by two professors from NYU and Columbia Business School. They ran this landmark experiment to test the perceptions of men and women in the workplace. And they started with a Harvard Business School's case study about a real-life entrepreneur, and her name was Heidi Rosen. And the case described how Rosen became a successful venture capitalist by using her outgoing personality and vast personal and professional network that included many of the most powerful business leaders in the technology sector. The professors then assigned half of the students to read Heidi's story and gave the other half of the students the same story, the same case, with just one change, one difference. They changed the name to Howard instead of Heidi. So the professors then polled the students about their impressions of Heidi or Howard. The students rated Heidi and Howard equally in terms of their competency. Which is, you know, makes sense because they are literally, their accomplishments were identical, right? So yet, while students respected both Heidi and Howard, they felt that Howard came across as a more appealing colleague. Heidi, on the other hand, was seen as selfish and not the type of person that you would like to hire or work for. So, the same data with one single difference, that is gender, created vastly different impressions. So have you met that Heidi Howard bias? And this experience supports actually what other research has already shown, that when a man is successful, he is liked by both men and women. But when a woman is successful, she is liked less by both genders. What are your experiences? Is likability important? How do you transcend that dichotomy?
I feel like I'm so likable, but I have to tell you that coming into rooms, often I have heard some feedback like, oh, she's and please excuse me, I'm just going to say it because it said, oh, she's a bitch. You know, like she really is like advocating for what she wants. Meanwhile, I know that, you know, if my name was Edward, I would be lauded, like, go get it, you know. It's a hard balance. It is a stark reality that's out there, but I'd rather be that one that asks for it and not kowtow and just operate as I'm supposed to be operating. That's not what I'm about. You had talked about building your head, making sure that your mind is strong. My heart is super strong too, and so I let my heart and my gut tell me what to do often as my brain. And so I want to kind of underscore that. But it happens to me a lot, actually, because I'm not afraid to kind of speak up and speak out. One time, I'll give you a little story. Do you ever see on the streets the big union rats? Like there'd be those big blow-up rats, right? I was in a meeting at the mayor's office, and we were talking about diversity in union workforces. And I, very out loud, said, well, there's a way for us to track this, because there was a discussion about how it was really hard to figure out if there are women and minorities in the union workforces. I'm going back a few years, but I said, oh, no, I know how to track it. And I gave this suggestion to the Bloomberg administration at the time. A week later, I had a rat outside my office on 2 Park Avenue, huge rat, and they were handing out pamphlets saying that Elizabeth Velez is anti-union. And I said, wow, I really spoke out very loud. So I may not be as overtly aggressive anymore, and I think I was just trying to be helpful.
But that rat was a badge of honor.
That rat was a badge of honor, absolutely. 2 days of it. And I was skulking around like people would know that I was Elizabeth Velez with the rat. You got to get your rats every once in a while.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. It's a rodent pride.
I've had a number of experiences. I mean, imagine in finance. There's less than 3% of senior executives are Hispanic women. So it's rare, right? And so I've had, so many experiences, but I tell you, it's not just being labeled differently when you walk in the room, but it's also the stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
So, quick story, I was talking to a white male who was a partner, a business partner with our organization, and we were negotiating a transaction. Multi-million-dollar transaction over the phone. Now, my interactions with this man have all been on a professional basis. We've never discussed anything beyond the business topic at hand. And he called me on the phone to have this negotiation, and the first thing he said to me is, you know what, you remind me of J-Lo.
Okay, I got Sofia Vergara.
Really? Yes. And then I said, of course, I became defensive, and I said, well, why would you say that? And he said, oh, you sound like her. And I said, no, I don't. And this whole thing went back and forth, and I had to call him out on it. But I'll tell you that it's not. J-Lo's amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love her, but it's to be sexualized and to be objectified when the person on the other side of that phone was supposed to take me seriously. Not being seen as an equal. You know, sexism comes in so many forms. It's not just being labeled as a bitch or the difficult one, or because you make strong decisions,
Right.
then you're not likable. But it's also, taking away the credibility of you've earned that position. You're in that room or you're having that negotiation for a reason. And at that moment, for a second, it's like everything I'd built meant nothing, because this one man felt that he had that it was okay for him to make a comment like that to another professional colleague. And that's sometimes sexism is comes in so many forms, and we have to reject it at all forms.
That's right.
There was a time where there's even happened where we've had conflict within our, I've been in positions where I've had conflict with other senior management, and I've received flowers. But my male counterparts don't get flowers.
Right.
And then it's not just the person giving me the flowers is being sexist, but it's the message that we're sending out to the rest of the organization is, oh, Nancy gets treated with kid gloves. She's special. She's different. So when I look at her, I don't see a colleague. I see a woman, and then comes the colleague part of it, and that's the barrier, because I don't want to be seen as a woman. I want to just be seen as an equal, a colleague. I'm the same as all the men sitting in all the other offices on the same row. So I think that those are experiences that are very, very common to this day.
I was talking to Dr. Cortez this morning. The New York Times has on the front cover an analysis of some presidential tweets. And they were talking about the way
comments.
that women are being described in some of those presidential tweets, right? Fat, ugly, horse face recently. It's taking, the reality is the world is actually bending in this totally different direction. I can't even say it's backwards, because I know that previous generations would never do that. It's a reality that we have to be aware of and try to change as much as we can. And as we change, hopefully, those C-suite executives, those higher executives, as we bring women into more leadership positions, it's got to change. It's got to change.
And I'm sorry. Well, I was just going to add that what's funny to that story about the J-Lo is when I told my male colleagues and my male boss, they thought it was a compliment. They thought it was funny. And I had to explain why it was offensive.
You're not even from the Bronx. Jenny from the Bronx.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just
the
wanted to
block.
say, to add that I was just talking to my colleague Sunita this morning, and she was saying how she had gone to Springfield, Massachusetts to make a presentation, and again, she's in finance. It was an all-male room. She's the only woman in the room. Stand up, Sunita. She's a minority. So congratulations, Sunita. And she looked out over the sea of faces of all men, and there were some older men, gentlemen in the back with white hair, kind of sitting there like this, and then the younger ones. And she made her presentation, just said, I'm just going straight with the facts and making my presentation. And afterwards, the younger ones came up to her and said, this is really interesting, and blah, 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 and started to talk about the content. And the older gentlemen were still just sitting back here.
Yeah.
So this is up to you guys. This is up to your generation to help to continue these changes being made, to educate your brothers, your sons, your cousins, any males in your family. It's up to you, because as our generations are moving, just as Sunita experienced yesterday, this is going to change. So we're not going to have these Howard Heidi things. And I also think that women have a leg up, and I'll tell you why. Because there was a study done and asking employees what they want to see, what qualities they want to see in their leaders. Courage. Do women not have courage? Yep. Integrity? Yep. Perseverance? Yep. Humility, and to be caring. We, women, have a leg up because of that. So no matter what other people were telling you, you have that, and your employees, you act like this, you're going to be a true leader, and your employees will appreciate it, and to hell with everything else. And the women that I work with all over the world, from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Zimbabwe, all these countries where women are pushed down, they don't take no for an answer. They employ all of these qualities with their employees, and their businesses continue to grow. So this, again, is where I think women do have a leg up, because those are kind of innate qualities that we all have, and to hell with everybody else.
And that wraps up 45 minutes of this very robust conversation. And I'd like to invite instead of recapping everything that the highlights, maybe perhaps we'll do a very quick lightning round, just 30 seconds each of you, on an item, a call to action. Let's say something that we can do. What can Berkeley College do to best prepare our students for their dynamic careers? 30 seconds.
I would say that continue to have events like this. You need to be around like-minded people to grow and to have these really important discussions. And these types of events are what give the opportunity to give your students the opportunity to learn and be inspired and continue to grow.
Okay, next.
I would say encourage operating out of one's comfort zone. It could be doing a lot of public presenting, getting up in front of rooms. It really will help for those uncomfortable moments as it goes forward, as you go forward.
Okay.
Same thing, I think just being connected to the business community so that you're constantly bringing in leaders from different industries so that you and the teachers know what's going on, what's up, what's happening in this industry, where are the future jobs coming from, so that you're connected with the real world and not just with computers and books and really important learning, but that you also really connect with the industry leaders where the jobs are being created.
Believe in the collective, absolutely.
Thank you for being so generous. See, I told you they're the baddest.
Appreciate it. Sorry, well, they're changing. I'm going to say one more thing because they had asked, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend that people read that would inspire them? And the one that I want to tell you about is not, a lean in or a book that is going to teach you here the qualities of leadership. It's called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. And each one of you should get these books and read them to your daughters, to your sons, to your brothers, to your sisters, to your cousins. Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. It features successful women all over the world in all kinds of industries that you've never heard of. Some you have, but it's very inspirational. So I think they have 2 or 3 volumes
I
right
actually
now.
brought mine. It's Start With Why. This is a terrific book. Yep, as far as leadership skills. It's not how you do something, it's why you do it. Elizabeth, let's talk about. Oh, absolutely. Berkeley Blue, I love it.
We have with us Christine Nicholas, the CEO of Nicholas and Lens. We have Shelley Jones Jennings, the Vice President and Director of Digital Media at Earl Graves Limited and Black Enterprise Magazine. And we have Celicia Thompson, Dr. Celicia, who's an entertainment manager and brand strategist and our own faculty member here at Berkeley College. Thank you, ladies, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
I'd like to start with giving us a little bit of a synopsis of the business that you're in. You're all entrepreneurs in one way or another. And then that defining moment that brought you to starting a business or to where you are today.
Okay. You want me to
Start with you, Christine.
Okay, great. So I'm the CEO of Nicholas and Lens Communications. It's a boutique PR firm in government affairs. You met Laura Rothrock, but I also have here with me Shin Jung Hong and Sky Osterreicher. We are 14 people, nimble, and I'm very proud that of the 14, 10 are women. And I always feel like if you want to have a strong workforce, hire as many women as possible. My partner is George Lentz. We'll let him slide. No, he's terrific, really, and we love working with Berkeley. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for inviting me today to be part of this. And I got so much out of the last panel and also the keynote speaker. So I hope we can live up to those expectations.
Good morning. I work at Black Enterprise, like she said, but I also own and co-founder of Coco Fab, which is a multimedia company for women of color. And for me, I'm doing both. I'm juggling 2 jobs at one time, which is kind of difficult. And so the business, my business is kind of suffering because of both of our partners are doing the same thing. But I wanted to go into my own business because I wanted to be a voice for women of color. We have other, companies doing that, but it was more about the younger generation. And I'm so happy to be here and excited to be a part of this panel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? They told me to talk into the mic, but shout out to all my students out there. I saw a couple of you guys. No? No shout out? Okay, well, whatever. I'm on the White Plains campus this semester. Excited about that. And so as a full-time professor and entrepreneur, I think both worlds do go together. I've been an entrepreneur for 16 years and working in entertainment and music management. And this is going to be weird, but my defining moment was when me and my sister, who's also my client, my sister is a singer, Selena Johnson, when we went on tour with Kanye. I know.
That was before, right?
Oh, that was College Dropout. Oh, Kanye.
Okay.
Oh, Kanye. So when we went on tour with Kanye, I realized that I was like a 1099 kind of employee person. And so that's when I set up my company and structure. But it really was just like being thrown into the mix of me and my sister going on tour with them. We went on their European tour and figuring out that, oh, so I got to get a bank account and a business name, and then I got to do, so that was like the moment.
Well, the moment, and not everybody can say they went on tour with Kanye and Selena Johnson.
Oh, Kanye.
Oh, Kanye. Oh, Kanye.
Make sure you
But don't quote me. And
oh.
don't tag.
Well,
It's
isn't
live
that?
stream. This is live stream. Too late. Pull it back now.
He's in Africa. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh, he can see us.
we're gonna hashtag that. Everybody.
Well,
out
actually,
there.
we have a Kanye connection as well. I'm really proud that we worked for Kanye as well with promoting his Gold cologne, which was a really exciting time. So you know, there you go.
How do you promote
Kanye's in the house, even though he's in Africa. He's really here
and
among us.
the
so.
gold cologne? Hmm.
Yeah.
How does that work? Gold cologne.
Well, it was, it was a product placement. We had to do PR for it, and it was a very challenging time. So, it was supposed to come out at a certain time. It got delayed, but, it was the Xinjiang, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they were very pleased that it was the highest selling cologne, men's cologne, and it sold in Macy's and Barney's and all of the Federated department stores. So they were very pleased for it. And we were supposed to have him as an appearance, but he decided to go to Cuba instead. So he's like, you guys can do it without me. It'll be fine. I'm like, oh gosh, how much press did we promise would be meeting Kanye? But, it worked out fine.
It could be a public relations nightmare when you promise, right? And how do you get through that moment when you're pitching for a client and the client may not show up? Or the celebrity.
You have so much, it happens. I mean, and I think you have to be flexible. And I think this is a lesson in life. Like, things change.
Yep.
And you just, my philosophy of success is being able to adapt to change. Okay. And I think the moment you can do that, and having worked for, City Hall politicians, things change on a dime. And you could prepare all you want for like a big grand event, but at the end of the day, working in City Hall or with the governor's office, if there was a firefighter or there was a city worker that was killed in the line of duty, they have to do that right away. I mean, Angie knows that as well. I mean, just how many times did we have events scheduled, but we always knew that something can change. So you just have to be prepared for change.
So that's a great training ground, working in government, working in journalism, in media, the adaptability, the change factor that is continuous. It's like our economy. And what's interesting about what you said, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Salisha, is how you just started your business. You just decided that moment came when you were on that tour, and I just made it happen. And so a lot of people and women go into business not really thinking about it. They just do it. So how do you get beyond the just do it factor to really structuring a business?
Well, I think you really do have to just do it. But you really do. Not to be, quote, Nike, but, it was very cliche. But I think you just, like, for me, it clicked. But I didn't have, someone was up here saying they didn't have mentors. I didn't have mentors, even though my father and my parents were like, they had entrepreneurial spirit. I didn't have mentors. And back then, you didn't start LLCs. You know, so I didn't have mentors. I didn't have women in the music industry that brought me along because there was very few women. So I just had to learn everything I learned myself. So I always tell my students that you're lucky you have mentors and professors and people at Berkeley College to tell you what to do. Like, I didn't have that. So to help you write business plans and things like that. So I do think you just have to learn it along the way. But when you are in a position like in a college setting, and it's the reason why we put students in groups and make them work on case studies and make them write papers, you're learning viable skills that translate later on. So take the opportunity as students, for the students that are out here, to soak up the knowledge from your professors, from your peers, and that's how you learn. Because I didn't have mentors. I don't know about the ladies up here. I didn't have a mentor to tell me to do this. I had to learn everything, like what is it, School of Hard Knocks? Is
Yes,
that
that's
what
what
we
it is.
call it? Okay.
Mhm.
That's, you know.
Well, for me, I was told the opposite. My mom was a beautician for years, and she owned her own business. And my grandfather was 7 years, great schooling, and came up from the South and built, a big paving business. And so when I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I knew it was in my blood. My mom was like, "No, you're going to get a college education because it's too much hard work, and you really need to go to school and just go get a job." And so I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur because I wanted to have my own destiny. I didn't want people to necessarily, tell me that you can't do this and you can't do this and you can do this. And so I just got with like 3 friends, and we were just like, you know what? We left Essence. We worked for Essence Magazine, and we left. And not that we wanted to leave, for me, but things happen, and we just all decided that we were going to come together and create a business. But my background is I'm a computer engineer by trade. And I kind of got into the business aspect of media. And I've always wanted to own a nonprofit. That's my ultimate dream. And so that's what I hope that I can really work on, because I want to bridge the gap of technology from minority students all the way up to like high school and graduation and things like that in college, because I think that the divide is really, big, and we're falling behind. So that is my ultimate dream of being an entrepreneur.
Christine, who was your mentor?
I feel very blessed because I grew up with 2 loving parents, although my parents were separated and they were actually in the courthouse to get divorced. And I'm telling you like a personal story, sorry about that. But my father's mother was dying, so they put it on hold, and then they ended up remarrying each other, kind of crazy Catholics as they were. So, they were, so from a very early age, I can remember when I was 10 going into the office with my dad. And there was this Operation Sail where they brought in all the tall ships in Lower Manhattan, and he worked downtown. So he had no problem bringing me to work with him. And it was a little daunting. He was in the finance business, and they would say, "Okay, why don't you go hang out in the secretary pool and you can type and have fun?" And my father would say, "No, she can sit here." And I was a sponge. And we did it over the summertime. In fact, when they were separated, he would have us during vacations. So that February break and that Christmas break, he would have us, and he would have us just park in his office, and we would do our homework, or we would, so I'd say that was sort of the most important part of my career training, is just watching him.
So that exposure
Yeah.
to entrepreneurship and to business, the expectations that were set early on,
Yeah.
those are really 2 important factors for entrepreneurship and also for success. You have to set the expectation early. Talk about the voices of women in business. And you're all in the business of amplifying voices, figuratively and literally.
Well, at Black Enterprise, it's really huge because we have a Women of Power conference that we have, which is about corporate women, and it's an annual event where we have about probably close to 1,200 to 1,500 women of color, mostly African American. But the voices of women for me has been, my mom is a strong black woman. She was the voice and she always drove me. But I've met so many great women along the way that have been the voice for me, because I probably wouldn't be here, because in every company that I worked in, I needed to have that person that was really, going and advocating for me. And it was really, really, true for me to understand that now I need to be that voice for the younger generation. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we lose that aspect that, that they can do it on their own. They don't need the voice. They don't need mentorship. They don't need examples. The millennials are really great in things that we're not great in. I'm 57 years old, so I'm kind of older, on the older side. And so I think we all need to come together where we can learn from each other and then be the voice for each other in situations, because the millennials have their way of doing it. They're all social, they're open to everything, and where we're kind of, guarded. And so I just think that we definitely need to be voices for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, it was my mom, just like in the 80s, watching her, because she worked in politics. She was the first black female police commissioner ever in the United States. So seeing her do that, seeing her do that, and like she was in, because for so long she was just like with my dad, and then she kind of went into politics, and the NAACP has honored her, but just watching that, but then she kind of transitioned to just like, now she's retired and just watches like talk shows all day. She loves it. She might be watching this. Hey, mama. But she knows everything. But watching her, she like be the first. And so you guys were talking about that earlier. First, and then I have strong women in my family, so those are kind of voices for me. But I like to study women in business, like Indra Nooyi. I love her. Just watching women be the first in their roles. I think that's awesome to watch that. So, and then in my classroom, as I always bring back to the classroom, empowering the women. I empower the men too, but empowering the women to start their businesses and to I push them a little harder and extra because I see stuff in them because I'm a woman, So it could take place in the classroom as well, as far as like being a voice for other women, I think.
How has digital media impacted the voices of women and all of us, really, in the communities?
Well, I think it's given women a voice that, to some women who haven't necessarily had a voice. I mean, when you see the social media movement and the Me Too movement, what's happening right now, this is something that I think as an older woman, and having had been the first in a few career moves, I'm very proud of the young women today that are going to forge ahead, I think, much stronger than we did. And we were a little bit quiet, and I think we were very we realized we were the only ones at the table often. And so it was a bit intimidating, and we knew that we had to collect our thoughts before we said something because we were going to be judged. You're shaking your head. I just love how the young women today just, they say it. They are equals, and they will not take no for an answer. And I'm just in awe. I think it's just, it gives me hope for the future because, as the last panel said, she said, I'm exhausted, just from all of the rhetoric and the fighting, and you read the paper, and it's, even today, but with the latest tweets and whatnot, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think when you see how women are being referred to, I actually think that it'll make us stronger. It'll bring us together from both sides of the aisle. And I think you'll see in the future that women are going to be in much higher positions because this is a wake-up call. You read about or you learn about how boards are only 8% of women are on boards, if that, and there's this mandate to have 30% of women on boards, on corporate boards. I think after what you're seeing now, you're going to see 40% of corporate boards being women because I think it's just enough is enough. and we need to be in that room to stop it as it's happening.
For me, for social media, I totally agree. You know, we were just trying to stay.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
We're
You know,
happy to be
we
there.
were happy to be there. We knew we belonged, but these young people, they just don't care, you know. And I'm not saying they're being disrespectful or
Right.
anything like that. They just feel like, yeah, I know, but you know, they feel that I am worthy. And I've learned from that, from them, because I've had my team tell me sometimes, do you really understand how dope you are? And I was like, you know, I never think that. I'm just there doing what I'm supposed to do all the time. But they're looking at it and saying, no, you know, you need to stand up and get what you deserve. And they do that. And they force me to do it. And I was like, you know what? I am kind of dope. Like, why am I sitting in the back and, you know, just saying I'm here, I'm having a seat, so I arrived. So that's enough for me. It's not enough for me anymore. And I think that's what I see from women today. They are like, you know what, we're here. You see them in being politicians. You see them in, you know, speaking out against the Hollywood. I mean, they're all coming together, and I love it because I think it's a great time. I mean, it's always great to be a woman, but it's really, really, really great to be a woman because I think people are really listening to us really right now, and that's important.
Yeah, I would like to add to that. So I do believe, you know, women, we are the future, and we're the now as well. Yeah, we change that. We're the now and the future. But I do caution my students sometimes and some of my clients and just young women entrepreneurs that when you are on social media in this digital world, be mindful of how you post and what you post.
Yes.
Post with purpose.
Yep.
And, you know, so I try to instill that having a little emotional intelligence, you know. And it's tough because, you know, I'm on Twitter. Sometimes I'm a little crazy.
I follow
But
you.
I've
I
calmed
see it. I
down
see
because
it.
Berkeley College does follow me. So I was like, whoa.
She's got a lot of
Now it's
followers,
not
so she
personal
must
anymore.
be saying
No,
something
I-
right.
professional too, right?
I behave better. Sometimes I'll just do the eye roll emoji, like, but I've gotten better. But you want to post with purpose, right? And we like you said, our voices are very strong, and I think so. When you do say something, it does have to be impactful and powerful. So I just caution people that I know my millennials love to keep it real and all of that, but sometimes you could be keeping it real wrong. So just post with
regret it.
purpose. Yeah, and regret it
Regret
later
it.
because those tweets say, remember,
Yeah.
you know, there's a black
Goes
web
viral.
out there.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just be mindful, but, you know, be proud, you know, of who you are and how you think and the fact that you think differently, but post with purpose.
That's
Yeah.
good advice.
Great
I just,
advice.
if I could just add, you know, earlier when the deputy secretary was being introduced, I noticed something when she was the first Latina to be ever a deputy secretary, and there was a smattering of applause. And the way I interpreted that, if you had said that 10 years ago, the room would have been, you know, erupted in applause. And I think there's almost, you know, we're very proud of women to be at that level, but there's also a sense of what took so long. Like, you know, almost like, should we be applauding that, or should we being like upset that it's taken this long? And that's sort of the feeling that I got from the audience reaction. I don't know if you picked that up as well, but
I did, but at the same token, you know, it is what it is. You know,
yeah,
and
no,
so we
I'm
just have
proud
to-
of her.
yeah, you know,
Absolutely, I'm
and-
not taking anything
Yeah.
away from that. There's going to be a lot of firsts, but at the same time, and maybe it's this Me Too movement, or maybe it's this new era, but we're also like a little frustrated that we're still celebrating firsts.
Yeah.
We should have been celebrating that 40, 50 years ago.
But I agree, but I'm happy that we have some firsts.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I'm happy
And-
that we do.
First, but not the last.
Exactly.
And keep it going.
Right.
Well, I want to get back to the seat at the table, and not just having the seat, but bringing the voice with it. Many of our students are graduating with the idea that they'll have a seat at the table someday. They're probably not anticipating many of the hardships that we still have to endure, and that
well,
many of you
get
have
ready.
shared in our panel before us.
Yeah.
They go in with, how do you help them go in with eyes wide open to prepare themselves for that journey of reaching their goals and getting that seat at the table and bringing their voices with them?
What I would say is you got to learn from your mistakes, and there are going to be mistakes, and that's okay. So, you know, yes, have your eyes wide open, get a education, which they're doing right now, getting a top-rate education here at Berkeley. But just know that there will be mistakes made, there'll be forgiveness, and seek guidance from people that you feel close to. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I've gone through a lot in my career because in being in computers and technology, I was the only female, you know, all the time. And I think sometimes things were taken out of context too, you know, but it helped me to broaden and to look and not be so tunnel vision on how I think things should happen, you know. So for me, you have to have a support group wherever you are. You just do, whether it's I think you need to have external people that are your support group and internal people that are your support group. And you really need people that are going to keep it real with you and keep it right, you know, because there's many times that I'm thinking, you know, I'm talking about the situation and I'm like, okay, this is my perspective and I'm right. But then when you kind of bring it out to, you know, your core group, they're like, well, could you look at it this way? And you're right, you're going to make mistakes and you can't beat yourself up on it. You got to let it go. But I think the biggest thing that I've learned over my career is that to sit back and have patience and listen and then kind of shape what you want to do and take those next steps and not be so, you know, on a sense that I have to do it right now, you know, because it's patience. It's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. In my latter part of my career, I'm much happier, you know, and I'm enjoying it. Before, I was so driven, you know, and I had to get there no matter what, you know, and that caused me to have some serious, you know, challenges because I didn't want to open myself up to what was actually happening around me.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, I've been teaching for 17 years. You know, I know I look young. You know, and I've been an entrepreneur for 16, and so with 3 degrees, you know, I've been in school. I was a professional student. The one thing I know and what sustained me in entertainment and still being able to get deals and sign contracts, which I have a bunch coming up in the next couple of weeks, is, you know, you have the seat at the table, but can you keep the seat? So keeping the seat, you have to, once you graduate, and I tell my students this all the time, you have to continue to educate yourself. So what I do is I'm always reading. I'm a sponge. These are 2 books that I'm reading right now. One is by John C. Maxwell, How Successful People Think. And this one is Donald Miller, Building Your Brand. So you get the seat at the table, and the way you keep it is through your expertise. Thinking successful and building your brand. Like, there's no way around it. And that's the only way I've been able to sustain, is that I have built a brand, which, you know, you guys know that, you know. I've built a brand outside of just, oh, this is, you know, Dr. Celicia Thompson, or, you know, I've built my personal brand. People don't realize that we're personal brands. And then I also think, you know, one way. I think successful. So I think you have to get the seat at the table and then keep it by educating yourself and showing that you deserve. I know we shouldn't have to prove it, but.
Well, we always have to prove ourselves, you know.
Right.
I don't think we have to prove ourselves whether, you know, we could do it as a woman. We just have to continue to prove ourselves that we can do the job as a person. Yeah.
We heard before about the J-Lo experience.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh my God! I would have
of
been
our
so.
colleague Nancy, the
I would have been like
the
J-Lo for real. But that is bad. That is bad.
Talk about the invisible barriers that women should be aware of. Some of the invisible barriers you encounter. It's not so visible. The J-Lo comment could be perceived as an invisible barrier.
It is, and that was bad. But I mean, at first I was like, "Oh my God, J-Lo, you're amazing." But it happens all the time with women, especially in entertainment. And when I was sitting back there and I heard that, it's funny because I was just on a call last night with a booking agent for one of my clients, and like in the middle of the conversation, he said, "I have to ask you a question. Are you single?" Like, we're talking about speaking engagements. What do you? And I was taken aback. Like, am I single? I'm like,
What does that have to do with this booking?
I was so mad. I was trying to get off that phone so fast, but it happens. So there are barriers, and you know, I I still struggle with that. So I really can't even, because I'm either going to go off on you like you're crazy or just be like, just get through it. So I haven't found, I don't really know how to deal with that.
You don't want to mess with a woman whose mom was the police commissioner.
I can't even, if I tell her, she'll be like, what's his Facebook? Because she's on Facebook. She'll go down to the Facebook. So it's just, I don't know. I would love to hear these ladies' opinions because I still struggle with that. And I don't, it's like, what do you say? You don't say that to me, and then hang up, and it's like, do you get the deal? Do you want, it's just, men have to do better in life. I guess.
But we have to teach our men to do better. We have to, teach our sons to do better. I mean, I'm 57 years old. Like I said, I've dealt with it, throughout the career, especially when I was younger, and it's subtle, so it's not, they're not overly, aggressive with it. And I think back in the day, it was the men will be men, and you have to respect yourself. And so, I always had a rule when I was coming up. I never dated anybody that I worked with. That was done. I would never do that. I never went out, didn't do anything. It was a group lunch. I never dated anybody, and I had offerings, and I was like, I just don't do it, because I knew the conversations and heard the conversations that happened when women just went out on an innocent date or something like that. And it's unfair that we have to do that, because why can't we? But at the same token, I am so happy that the Me Too movement came out and the men are now being held accountable for their actions, that we really didn't have that voice to do that. I mean, we could definitely speak up and do the things that we needed to do, but it was subtle. So it wasn't like someone was doing something that was so criminal, at the time, but it was criminal, but we weren't taught that way, and so now the women are like, I'm not having it anymore. And I think it is the best thing that happens because we're holding men accountable at the end of the day. And they need to be held accountable. It's not fair that you treat us and you hold our life, our career in your hands, and you can dictate where we go, what we do. I mean, it's just unfair. And so I applaud the women that have stood up now and that are going to, and we need to continue to put the pressure on every day, because it's not fair that we're sitting here and people can do things to us and it's like, oh, it's okay. He's a man. It's fine. He didn't mean it, and that you felt a certain kind of way behind it. So, I just think we have to bring it out in the open like we're doing and continue to do that because it's unacceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to train men. It's like, and no disrespect to the men who are in here, because I know from the president
We're generalizing.
No, I know we are, and that's not right either. But I think even today, there's a lot of women in my work environment, and a man will say something that's a little inappropriate, and you can just tell that they had no idea.
Yep.
They have no idea what they said was inappropriate, and we'll kind of get an eye lock and just be like, is this the battle I want to pick right now? I mean, you have to figure out when to speak up. Sometimes you just, it's like you have to have a thick skin too. And, there's a quote, speaking of the books that you asked us, Angela, to think about. There's a book called Journeys, and I'm a big supporter of immigration. I think it's why our country is so strong, because we have different voices. Yep, and absolutely. So there's a book called Journeys, and it was co-written by Andrew Tisch and Maria Skafidis, and it's about 75 different stories of people who have come from different places. And this is not just immigration through Ellis Island, which we work closely with, but it's all types of immigration, including forced immigration, which now, just as an aside, at Ellis Island, there is the Peopling of America Center, which was opened 2 years ago under President Obama, and it is the National Center for Immigration. So it goes through everything from Native Americans to slavery to immigration at the turn of the century to today when people are coming over the borders. And it's a place where you can learn about our backgrounds as America. I'm sorry if I got off topic, but anyway, in this book, So it has all these different stories. There was a quote that says, if you educate a man, if you educate a boy, you're educating one man. If you educate a girl, you're educating an entire family. And, you know, the women, I think in most societies, when you're at home, the woman is the leader.
Yep.
You know, and they're the teachers. So they're going to be the teachers in that household. And that's why I think it's almost more important to educate women. So that not only are we teaching those in our household, but we're educating everybody in our, you know, in our workforce, in our environments.
I think next year what we need to do is bring the voices of men forward in our conversation here. I want to be fair to the men. We received so much support for this event on social media. Many of the retweets and the posts took place from many of my colleagues at Berkeley College and even beyond, people I don't even know. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to say that Ian and IS put together our women's playlist. So there are the hands of men in this event all around us, and I want to thank them too. I want to continue the conversation by taking some questions from our audience. I have there's a young woman over here. You have a question? Tell us your name, who you are, and what brought you here, and ask your question.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Valeria Mendoza. I am a first-generation college graduate. I started my own business. Thank you. I started originally working at Univision and then realized I could do what they do on a very minimal scale, working directly with clients. So I decided to do that on my own. I was really curious to understand, maybe walk us through a situation that you maybe felt a little uncomfortable, you know, kind of having a conversation with a male colleague. I actually wanted to go back to the comment you made about sort of feeling awkward in that situation and trying to communicate, you know, how we could turn it around, how we could turn around that situation with, oh, you sound like J-Lo, into something that is maybe practical, like maybe apply some practical responses so that we can learn how to redirect that converseen.
Right, that's a great. Well, here's the thing with that. The example I gave you guys was light. I've been in the entertainment industry working with R. Kelly, Busta Rhymes, Fabulous, Kanye West, Common. Like, I got stories. So I'm not going to divulge any of those stories. But so that was a light thing. But just now I still struggle with, like, because in my mind I'm like, I don't even want to continue dealing with you because why are you asking if I'm single? Because then it later on went to, well, when you're in Atlanta, we should go out. So I'm like, so are you going to give me the deal or what? Just where's the check? Okay. So I still struggle with that, but there are tons of examples, and that's what people don't realize, that women, we go through this a lot. So I just make the decision on if it's worth it or not. You know what I mean? So I just kind of weigh the decision. Sometimes, like she said something very powerful. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You're not going to show up to every battle. And that's why I just weigh, like, is it worth it or not? But I've been around the worst of the worst situations. So I'm battle tested. It's pretty good. Most of the people I ignore, just like, okay, you're crazy, so I'm just going to ignore you.
I think if you have to continually to work with someone, it's a little bit different,
Yeah.
you know. And I think you just have to find the perfect time to sit down and have an honest conversation, you know, and then tell them how you feel, whether they appreciate it or not. But I cannot continue to work around someone that, you know, has approached me in a certain way and think that it's okay. My personality is just not like that. You know, I'm not going to sit back and think and let you think that I'm okay with you treating me that way. I definitely handle it better now than I probably would when I was younger, you know, but I think it's an honest conversation, and sometimes you might have to bring in, you know, a third party just to be able to sit down at the table. It doesn't necessarily have to be an HR person, but you need to bring in someone that, you know, is at least adhering to the conversation and understanding that this is something serious. But sometimes you just can't let things go, and sometimes you shouldn't let things go.
That's true.
That's it. We have another question. Kelly.
Actually, it was sort of addressed, it was a comment because I grew up in the finance industry and it very much is very blatant there as well in many ways. I distinctly recall at one point in time, I was a recruiter for a corporation and I was attending a conference and a gentleman who was literally the owner of a bank, we were having a conversation. And he's like, oh, why don't you just come on back up to my room for a drink? And I'm like, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, why are you even asking me that? And he's like, you know what this is. You know, sometimes you just have to be like, that's not how I operate. And you have to walk away. You know, sometimes you have to lose that contract or that account or that opportunity because you have to stand for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the comment I was going to make.
Good for you.
I am going to make a comment on the Me Too movement. This has happened to me. I worked in this dental office. I was the oldest person there. And then it was a husband and wife. The wife kept making cracks. You're too slow. The doctor made comments about age factor. They were paying me below minimum wage. And I confronted them. What ended up happening, they chopped my hours down to 8 hours a week. And they gave me no work to do. After several months, I quit. And this, I stood up for my rights.
Yes.
And I actually, before that, I did go see a labor relation attorney, but they said there was not enough a case for a discrimination lawsuit. I thought this was disgusting what they're doing. And I actually feel like sometime going back to the office and saying, you know what? I am glad I left your disgusting office.
Right. Good for you.
Good for you. That's empowerment.
Talk
Okay, we have
about digital media on that. You might want to just. There's a lot of ways you can do that without having to go to the office. I'm just saying, you know.
I'm also a political activist. I am involved in about 4 or 5 campaigns, about 3 to 4 nights a week. I do phone banking and I do canvassing on many campaigns. Half of these people I can't even vote for. And actually, one campaign, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Her name is Luba Gretchen Shirley. She's out in Long Island running for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District against a 25-year incumbent by the name of Peter King.
Enough said. Enough said. We have Erica. Erica, you're a student here. You have a question? Here.
Hi. For those who don't know me, my name is Erica Kelly. I am a current associate senior here at Berkeley College. And my question to the lovely panelists is, what advice do you have for women entrepreneurs who are just starting their business or want to get started with their business? I myself would like to own my own theater company with a nonprofit sector in it as well. So what advice do you have to give?
I would say network. Do what you're doing right now. I love that you are out and talking about it. And I'm the chairman of the Broadway Association, so at some point we should chat, and you should come to a Broadway Association meeting. So there you go.
Now, that's a connection.
There you go.
And I want to say for everyone else here today, Erica will be part of a discussion following this panel, a student roundtable on leadership. So thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes. Another student leader here on campus.
You guys got a lot of student leaders. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jasmine Griffin. I'm a legal studies major here at Berkeley College. And I just have a question. I came in towards the end, excuse me, because I had work this morning. But you made a quote about a book that you read that stated, if you teach something to a boy, it'll only be taught to one other
If
man.
you educate a boy, you're educating one man. If you educate a woman, you're educating a whole family.
How do you feel about that statement?
I believe in it.
Really?
Yeah, I
You
do,
don't think
because as I
that-
was saying, I think women are teachers. Women, as you know, you're teaching a whole group in your family, and I just think that more women should become educated.
You don't think that men have the
I
capability?
absolutely think men should as well, but I think men are already getting educated. When you look at how many graduates are coming out of college or in doctorate degrees, it tends to be, now we're catching up. The gap is definitely catching up, but I honestly think that we should be pushing more women to see
opposed to
the
focusing on
value
men.
of education. And I think, like, you missed our first panel, but Nancy's here from our first panel, and one of the things that she said that resonated with me is the advice that she gives to young women is take as much time on trying to educate your mind, in a sense, beautifying your mind, as you do beautifying your appearance. And it'll go a long way.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Hi. Again, thank you all for being here. I have a question about going back the first panel and this one. There's a theme about having a seat at the table, but more importantly, bringing a voice to that table. So my question for you, and another theme that this event itself emphasizes, is paying it forward and supporting other women. So what are your advice, or what are experiences you've had about elevating the voices of the women next to you at the table and not just your own voice?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's very important. I've mentored for probably about 25 years. I always hire interns and mentors to my team. It's a lot of work because they might not be at the level that they need to be, but I feel that if you find something in them, then they can build and grow. Sometimes it's difficult. Women can be women too when you have them at the table, because they're all trying to, go and do what they need to do at the table at the same time. But you have to find those like things that you have in common and have conversations and talk. I think sometimes as women, we're so busy and tired and everything, and we're just trying to do what we need to do, that we don't really get a chance to know and understand who we're working alongside. We just don't have those conversations. We don't go have coffee. We don't have to, go and sit down and have lunch, and we don't have time to talk. But it's really important, because I think once you sit down, you understand that, hey, that person is not that much different than I am, and we have the same goals and likes, and I can learn from that person, and I can really work for that person, and that person can really help you, and you guys can be a team, because definitely the men are a team, that are sitting around at the table. They are all on the same side. They understand what they need to do. Us women are probably sitting there by ourselves, and so we need to come together, and form that alliance along each other.
And I work with students. Well, I've worked with students in the past, and currently I have a student that helps me with stuff, interning. I have a 100-person entrepreneur network outside of here that I empower a lot of women, train them, give them free master classes and things like that. Students have worked for me as assistants. I have one in the back, alumni, Deborah. There she is right there. She's a Berkeley College graduate. Let's give it up for Deborah. She's working on an amazing project that she actually developed in my entrepreneur class. And so we can't tell, proprietary information, we can't tell about it. But it's going to be groundbreaking in the STEM field. I've worked with a student, Nicolette Carruthers, Berkeley College graduate. She worked for Sony, she worked for Universal Music, and now she's doing amazing things, working with T-Pain, Joey Badass. So, that's an actual rapper. I'm not cursing. I said the president there. I got to make sure I'm not cursing. So I work with students. When I tell students, send me your resume, and those that send me their resumes, those are the ones I usually end up working with. And some students, they don't send their resume, so then I don't work with them. But I try to actually put into, if you send me your resume, I could see if I could help you. But those that stand out are the ones like Deborah and Nicolette and Jatan. I don't think she's here, other student. But those are the ones that stand out because they say, nope, I want to work with you, and we're going to work together. So I try to empower in the classroom and outside.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, speaking of empowering, we're going to wrap it up. And I'd like for you to share some empowering words on leadership, some takeaways or a final thought that you'd like to share with our audience.
Mine is simple. You get your work ethic. Deborah knows this. You have to work hard. I don't want any excuses. I come in my classroom every day. My students know I come right in bright and early. Okay, who's winning in here? It's a running joke, but I'm like, are you winning? Right? So you have to have a mentality. You have to work hard, and that's going to set you apart. That's for right now, like we could give tons of advice, but work hard. Challenge your work ethic every day.
Yeah, I agree with all of that too, but you have to be happy, and you have to have that work-life balance, and it's hard for us women to find that, and I just see so many times in talking to my, fellow sisters and friends and stuff, and they're just like, I'm dog tired, and I can't do another thing, and that's not the way that I think we should live. We can work until our bones are dry and do all the amazing things and stuff and everything, but if you're not really happy, what is it? Because we're all going to get older one day, and then you're going to look back and be like, listen, what did I do? Did I have fun? Did I laugh? Did I enjoy the roses? Did I enjoy the trees? I mean, we just have to, I think with social media and everybody's on the grid all the time, you're never off. That we just really have to take the time to do all those things that we want, but we also need to find the fun and happy times.
Right. That reminds me of there's another quote about finding happiness that if you are happy with the work that you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yep.
Right? So always find some happy moments in the work, and if you're really super unhappy, don't be afraid to change. Do not fear change, and I think that's something that I have to, sometimes remind myself because I get stuck in a rut and it's just easier to keep going, but don't be afraid to make the change if necessary. Because in the long run, you'll be happier, and if you're happier, you'll have a happier family life and,
Hopefully
happy
live
mom,
longer,
happy
too.
kids. That's it. Yeah, exactly. It's all good for life, a long life.
And trust yourself. Trust yourself and build trusting relationships. I want to share a book by Sheryl Sanders called Lean In, which is the was that your book? Yeah. Do you want to share a book before we go? Well, Lean In, because leaning in is about mentorship. It's about working together to affect change. So when you talk about those hard moments of how to respond to those challenging moments, find a mentor in your organization outside, how to deal with it, and lean in. What we're going to do after this panel is we're creating a circle. That's a lean in circle. And we're going to talk about what we heard here today and some of your thoughts about moving forward in your own lives as students, as entrepreneurs, as future business leaders, whatever you want to be. Shelley, you said it. You said we need to take the time to have that lunch, to have a cup of coffee. This is the time.
Yep.
We're going to take a 10-minute break to set up these two rooms for conversations. One of the conversations is a lunch and learn with Amy Sorcelli and our dean of the Larry L. Lewing School of Business, Alana Zolfel, and Amy is our vice president of career services. She is a premier branding expert on LinkedIn and social media networking for careers. Alana will give you the trenches of business and entrepreneurship. So please join them on this side of the room. We're going to have a circle of students talking about what we heard today and sharing it and moving it forward.